Movie review, Zone 414. Here's a little introduction before we get started. My name is Bravo von Mueller. I am a fine film connoisseur. In fact, I like everything that is fine. My grandfather was born in 1917, and like many of the men of his day, they loved Western movies. They ate them up. They could not get enough of them. Ronnie Reagan, he even went through a bad spell when he was in the White House. He got depressed and he watched westerns day and night for months upon months. Yeah, people got concerned, to say the least. But anyhow, Hollywood of the 1940s and 50s, they knew the hunger that men had for westerns, and they turned out hundreds, if not thousands, of good and bad westerns. My point is, the men who ran Hollywood recognized the need and supplied the drug, and that would be the westerns. In the 40s and 50s, it went on to the 60s. We had some pretty good spaghetti westerns in the 60s. There was a time long ago, way back when, the men in charge knew what they were doing. Now here we are, and my grandfather's generation, they died out in the 80s. My grandfather died in 86. Yeah, 86. And sadly, Hollywood does not recognize our need for sci-fi movies today. I mean, Hollywood is run by a bunch of imbeciles, spoiled children on antidepressants or something. The fact is, we now have a hunger for sci-fi movies. We need it badly. And Hollywood is sleeping or on antidepressants all the same. Oh, I know, Canada. Canada's popping out some good sci-fi movies here, here and there. Netflix is trying. I don't know if they're trying their best. Like I say, Netflix is trying, but they're sorely lacking in intensity and volume. So whenever a new sci-fi movie comes out, we take it like crack cocaine. We cannot get enough of it, good or bad, I tell you. Anyhow, I hope this gives you some idea on why I like this movie, even though they copied heavily from Blade Runner. So today I ponder and review a 2021 movie that I watched on Netflix, a neo film noir inspired sci-fi exploitation flick. In truth, it is a cross between Blade Runner, Chinatown, and Westworld, and that's what it is. It's all wrapped together. It's called Zone 414, and it's based on the city of robots, a prototype city where androids can interact with humans. And at the time, it's the only place that the government allows it in this city. And they call that part of the city Zone 414, the city of robots. Again, it's like a prototype city. The guy who created the androids, it's like a field testing how these androids interact with humans. But the similarities to Blade Runner are very, very obvious. But the similarities to Chinatown are not so obvious. But in many ways, Zone 414, the city of robots, is off limit. Much more than the Chinatowns of 1920. But this is more like Westworld, where the rich bastards pay 20 million pounds to enter the city and interact with the droids. Interesting how they use pounds instead of dollars, but the movie was filmed in Ireland, Northern Ireland. Now, it was written by an American, Brian Edward Hill. It had a $5 million budget, again filmed in Northern Ireland. And, let's go back to Blade Runner. In Blade Runner, the hero is working for the government. But in this movie, like Chinatown, our beaten down, depressed film noir detective is working for private entities. This private entity that he's working for would be the creator of the Zone 414. He's a mega maniac, multi-billionaire. He's made billions on this. Basically, this city is they pay $20 million to go into this city. Basically, it's like a bordello. Rich people get to have sex with robots and beat them up and everything else. Now, the movie stars Guy Pearce. His name is David in the movie. And by the way, Guy Pearce is he's very credible. He's a good actor. He's credible as a down and out Marlowe type detective. And as most of these dark film noir type movies, they're filmed in dark, seedy places. And our reluctant hero is, of course, is ex-military, ex-police detective. I like Guy Pearce in this role as David. The problem is Guy Pearce being the only big star in this movie. I mean, he gives it credibility, of course, but the problem with today's movies is they just don't have enough of the big stars in the movie. They don't have like a whole crew, a whole team of big stars like they did back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, even take Blade Runner. Blade Runner was overflowing with big stars, big names. This is not to say that these young actors in this movie are not good. They are good. But having a lot of big stars in the movies, like years ago, it gives it something special. So being a sci-fi addict like myself, I mean, I like Zone 414, but it will never have the legacy of a Blade Runner or a Westworld because they don't have enough big stars with, that certain persona. But, they only had a $5 million budget, and that only buys a certain amount of talent. Now, this is a good time to talk about the Irish director, Andrew Beard. He learned from the master, Roger Corman. I think this is very important. Okay, you got an Irish director here, Andrew Bard, and he learned from the master Roger Corman. Now, Roger Corman put out these exploitation type movies in the 60s and 70s. He was the master. And anyhow, so Andrew I guess he knows how to supply the masses with an exploitation film on the cheap. Give them what they want, good or bad, and we want it. We want this sci-fi, damn it. And that's what they're going with here. He learned this from Roger Corman. I don't have to have $100 million. He's got $5 million. I'll give the people what they want. They want sci-fi movie, I'll give them a sci-fi movie. He has enough money to hire one big actor, Guy Pearce, and this is where we're coming from. Now everybody's going to badmouth this movie, and they're going to say, oh, it's a Blade Runner knockoff. It's a Blade Runner knockoff. But what people don't understand is we need this sci-fi bullshit. We need it like my grandfathers needed westerns. Yeah, my grandfather and Ronald Reagan, they needed their westerns, good or bad. Now, you got to understand, in the old Hollywood, when they made these westerns, you needed to rely on Shakespeare stories. People don't realize that. The people who make movies back a long time ago, they would take the storylines of Shakespeare. Shakespeare had all the storylines. And then they would just be inspired by Shakespeare's storyline, and they would just make a movie. And they did that also with the Westerns. So to build a movie back then, you had to know Shakespeare's stories. Now, to build a sci-fi movie today, you need a basic understanding of Blade Runner, but more importantly, you need a deeper comprehension of like Neuromancer. If you ever read the book, it's a sci-fi book, Neuromancer. You need to have a good understanding of this stuff. I mean, everybody knows this. If you're going to make a sci-fi movie today, you got to study cyberpunk, heavy metal graphic novels that inspired Neuromancer and Blade Runner. So enough of that. Okay, well, let's talk about this lady right here. I'm showing you here, Jane. Her character is Jane. She's the special android, the mega maniac guy who created these androids. He really is proud of this one because she's a special android because she asks questions that she's not supposed to ask, and she has a okay. For example, in one good scene, Jane here, the special android, she gets a little violent on a pervert. It was a surprise. I mean, even to David, the character, Guy Pearce character David, he says to her, "I thought you were going to kill him." She says nothing. And then he goes on, "I can't imagine you're supposed to be doing that." And she doesn't say anything, but she just does things that the other robots doesn't do. And she's special. She's Jane. She lives by her own rules. And she's a good character in the movie. Well, I mean, she's like a co-star. I guess she is the co-star. Now, I don't even know if I told in the beginning. I might have missed this part. I'll put it in there. What's the movie about, okay? So you do have Guy Pearce. He's a very credible, down-and-out Marlowe-type detective. But he was hired by the owner of the corporation that created these androids. He's hired by the guy and to go into Robot City and find his daughter, go fetch his daughter. See, his daughter's missing. And he hires David to go fetch his daughter, who's run off to Zone 414, and apparently she's in trouble. So, and he wants her brought back in a low-key way, no cops, no authority. So they're paying the character David, Guy Pearce, they're paying him like $2 million to go in there, bring her out, and I'm not going to spoil the movie for you or anything, but after he finally finds the daughter, things go south. Yep, things start to go bad. It's dark, noir film. It's kind of like Chinatown, okay? Chinatown, they had deep family secrets in which the private dicks are not supposed to dig that far down. You know, the private eye's not supposed to dig that far. And David is like Jake. He digs deep and digs real deep, and he finds out these secrets. And let's talk about some things. What's this movie missing? Okay, it's too bad that the director didn't give David a bloody warning. You know, like in Chinatown, Jake, they put that knife. The director is Roman Polanski, I think it was the guy. He did a cameo, and he did that knife to Jake's nose, and it split his nose wide open. And for lots of the movie, Jack Nicholson's wearing this bandage on his nose. It's a bloody warning. I mean, we need this brutal pain. Us humans need to see pain and blood, and that's one thing that's lacking. David didn't get bloodied up or hurt like even Harrison Ford in Blade Runner was beat up and bloody. So that's one thing that's missing and lacking. Guy Pearce's character is not roughed up. And, okay, so while we're on the subject of what this movie is missing, one more thing. A much-needed rough sex scene would have been in order. I mean, even when Blade Runner, Harrison Ford's character impulsively slams Rachel up against the window. I mean, and that scene, the character Rachel, she didn't even know that was going to happen. They kind of hid it from her, and I guess she got bounced up against the wall, and she was startled. I mean, this is racy sex scenes, and we know what it feels like. This is what we needed. We knew that David wanted to slam Jane into submission, but he never does. And for this, we all suffer. I don't know. Maybe with what's going on today with the Me Too movement and all these girls, you can't touch me, and they complain. Maybe they're not allowed to have violent, rough sex anymore. I don't know. But Jane has quite an apartment, and here's another great scene. Guy Pearce's character David, he's a cold, hard, and he's direct. And he likes to call these androids machines. And again, Jane has a pretty nice apartment, and he meets Jane there at her apartment, and he asks Jane, oh, you got an apartment, huh? And she says, yeah. And he says, well, why do machines need an apartment? And she responds, so the machine forgets it is a machine. Now, the character David, he turns down alcohol a couple times, telling us that he is battling his alcohol problems. Every dark noir Marlowe detective has his monkey on his back, drinking, a history of depression. So back to the apartment there, Jane's apartment. They got a nice there Barcelona chair, the white chair. It's the only really nice, cool furniture in the movie. Then another thing is lacking. They don't have enough futuristic sci-fi furniture. I mean, I'll give them that much. The Barcelona chair. Her apartment's nice, but it could have used a little bit more, you know, in vogue, futuristic type of furniture. So again, a lot of people will say Zone 414 is just a blatant ripoff of Blade Runner, but don't we all copy other people, things, and ideas? Aren't we just a blatant copy of God himself? And so on and so on and so on. I tell you, we need this sci-fi, good or bad. We need a Roger Corman. Roger Corman, probably close to 100 years old now, but we need another Roger Corman to supply the masses with exploitation sci-fi films on the cheap. Give them what they want, good or bad. And of course, if the bad films get a little bit of action, maybe Hollywood would then wake up and make some good sci-fi movies. Hey, we damn it, we need this sci-fi. We give this sci-fi 6.5 Bravos out of 10.